So ultimately, what's being worried about is this feeling of, coming from wealth and privilege and basically knowing that I'm resented for it. Like, I've been since third grade was the first time I ever felt it. That, and maybe this is my projection, but I don't think so, from third grade after the observation that I've done on it. But it's from third grade, and I'm remembering from third grade. Yeah, there's this feeling like, oh, this motherfucker had it easier than me. Fuck that guy. Or whatever the projection is onto, and if it's not me or whoever it is, but I think rich kids in general have kind of like a layer of persona that comes from, I think, being disconnected from the social reality that, I think, because, like, the upper tier of wealth, so people are calling it the whatever percent. And so there's this feeling of like, well, they're not the same as us, and so they're not with us. And so for me, I kind of felt that. I kind of felt this like, oh shit, why did I get on this team? Like, you're on dodgeball and you get picked on a team that you don't want to be on. And so that was the feeling for me towards wealth, that I was like, oh, I don't want this team. I don't want to be on this team, because ultimately I don't want this dynamic with these people, which are all my friends. I went to one private school growing up, and there was kids that had parents with way more money than my parents, getting picked up from school with like Rolls Royces and Bentleys. We were pulling up in our Beamer, and I was like, it was a context, because the public schools that I had gone to, the Beamer gets looked at, and at this school, the Ferrari was getting looked at. And so the kid with the Ferrari got asked questions about what his parents did, and he was like, oh yeah, every weekend when school's over, I go to France. My parents live in France. I just come here for the weeks for school. That was wild. But yeah, so I have this kind of really bizarre context of, I don't know. I'm not really sure what it is. All I'm doing is I'm expressing my experience of, from what I'm pinpointing it on, it's, wealth and privilege seem to instigate a sense of jealousy and envy in people at a visceral level, because it's like, yo, you got it better than me. You got better air conditioning than me, and I'm outside and it's hot. And so it's a really intuitive, humanistic experience. I feel like it's not on some like, it's not on some, oh, you think you're better than me. That's actually kind of another thing. It's on some, let me have some of what you got, because it's obviously better where you're at. And it's this feeling, I think, from what I've experienced, it's both sides projecting onto the other what they think the other is, and actually neither are. Because I've projected towards people, friends with less intense financial backgrounds. I'm not sure if that paints it properly, but less intense financial backgrounds, even on a family level. I've perceived or projected onto them that there is a more relaxed and more relaxed family environment, a better family environment, a more accepting. And I think when I say relaxed and accepting, it's like, for me, because there was wealth and privilege, there was this like threat kind of lingering of like, do you know what's required to sustain this amount of energetic output and intake? A lot. Work harder. And not to say that that's not a great thing, because I think it equipped me for in a really beneficial way in a lot of ways. But socially, it augmented my perception of what should be desired. And it's like wanting a level of success, of financial success, or it's like that might not be for you, bro. Like, so to project that onto me is actually like, that's not it either. And I felt like just as much camaraderie sometimes from connecting with a dude sleeping on a tent on the street than as much as a person in a. Actually, that's the thing. I haven't experienced much connectivity with people of super upper tier financial and wealth social status, because it carries over into the posture, it carries over into the way that they carry themselves in the world, and basically think some type of comparison index. It's like I'm holding myself the way that I'm holding myself because I feel where the others are amongst the reference points, and so this is how I hold myself amongst all of that variety. And yeah, so I'm finding, and I guess this video is about, it's actually all bullshit. We're all fucking human beings, bro, and just because somebody's got more money than you don't fucking mean they're happier than you. I've learned from people that don't come from wealth that rich people do mad, ridiculous, stupid shit because they're rich people. But it's dumb. But they're doing it because they're, like, addicted to the idea of what wealth has provided them to date, which is really comfort, I'm finding. It's variations of comfort. But it's like, that's, one, unrealistic, two, kind of disrespectful for you to, and that's kind of the other thing too. It's like, it's really at some levels there's gluttony involved, but there's gluttony involved because of ambition, maybe. And these are not to be blanketed as statements onto, all people with money. I'm talking about my experience and the context and the index that I'm coming from, in terms of connecting to other people. What's the priority for me right now? Connection. And identifying why connection prospers or fails. And what are some of the ingredients that add or contribute to that? Like, what makes two people go when they are walking past each other and feel like they know each other and feel like they see a part of themselves in this person that's a stranger? And not even in that context of maybe, watching a football team, loving the same football team. And so society and the mental social construct has all these various points to lock into and lodge into to be able to connect to people. But if you're not locked into, or rather subscribed, like, different channels on YouTube or Snapchat, if you're not subscribed to that, you can't really connect to them on that page because you don't really participate in that mental culture or whatever is being referenced. Like, I can't connect with people. I used to connect with people on basketball, NBA culture, football culture, NFL, high school football, college football, all these sports, all this stuff that allowed me to interact in a social capacity fluidly. And I still have value for that. But I think what I'm referencing here is the role that coming from wealth and privilege plays in one's ability to connect to others on the spectrum of social hierarchy. The role that wealth and privilege plays in social hierarchy, because it's not about wealth. Like, societal position doesn't have to be about wealth and privilege, yet I feel like there is this projected role of the wealthy and privileged in society. Like, oh, those are those people, this is how they behave. And the thing is a lot of people behave like that. Like, there's somebody in the Hamptons right now wearing a pink polo with the collar popped and short khakis, and they probably play polo or lacrosse. So I think it's the same kind of thing. It's like, well, there's archetypes, and then there's exceptions, and then there's rules. There's, there are herds. Herds develop because of patterns. Patterns in what? In the way that in the way that the social construct is growing, it breeds different variations of the human experience, and that is the mental lens that we're interacting and interfacing with the world through, that we got because of how we came into the world. So cool, man, you fucking were born in the projects and came out of it, or maybe you're still in it, and you got this lens of how people move in the world, who come from money, and how they feel about you, and how they do this wrong or do this wrong or do that wrong or do this right, or maybe you think that they're better, maybe you think that that's more desirable than where you're at. And then I'm making this video because I'm a white kid from privilege who hated my privilege and hated my whiteness that's a later thing, but hated the privilege and hated the wealth because it seemed to be more important than family connection. I only had that conversation in my head because I saw families or people that came from what I perceived as not wealth, maybe poverty, living in a trailer, but with a mom or dad or brother or sister environment in their home that I subjectively referenced as more desirable than my own predicament. And so I have my own lens on wealth and privilege. I'm sharing this debate. I'm sharing this basically to be like, this is another slice of the pie. Because when I talk to most of the people in my life that have not come from wealth or privilege about my wealth and privilege, there's a taboo to it all, because it seems like we're all wanting wealth, we're all wanting our children to come from privilege, to not have to work for McDonald's and to work for themselves, to work to create something of meaning and value and importance in the world. I think this is what we are all striving for. In my limited experience of connecting to the variety of human beings in the world, not just in America, but it seems like what's being wanted is to raise a dope family, make dope children, live dope lives. What's dope? You got to define dope for yourself. But I think in living in the society that we live in, money's involved in that. So wanting to live a certain lifestyle, so wanting certain material possessions. So maybe you have on your bucket list a certain kind of car, as I see an i8 drive by. And it's like wanting nice things creates a juxtaposition. And ultimately, yeah, it's like we know what we don't want, so we know what we want. And it's like, for me, getting into past lives, getting into karma, getting into dharma, getting into context of your non-physical essence and how it's manifested into your physical essence, and why your physical essence looks like the way that it does. And basically, your physical essence is welcoming the type of life you have to live in order to attain the dream life that you're wanting, basically. And then there's trials and tribulations and struggles and burdens and things like, accidents and disease and tragedy and trauma and all these variety of variables that seem to make it impossible to even have a conversation like this of what should be desired. It's like, who's to say what should be desired? Fuck wealth, fuck privilege, go to a hut. That's a lot of I know some people who have lens like that are seeming to be, well, there's a lot of different aspects of what that even is, because some of it could be like a wound towards society, so they're thinking that they want to be free and not participating in the world because it's limiting, and so they label it as freedom, but actually it's like, yeah, maybe some trauma around society. Makes me think of, if I'm expressing what I'm expressing right now out of trauma because of how I saw just arguments and emotional distress and just the tension dynamics in my experience of family, my experience between my mom and my dad and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, and then friends, and then teachers in school, all towards me in reference around wealth and social hierarchy. So maybe I have some trauma that I'm expressing right now around this, but this is my lens on it. So I think I expressed what I was wanting to express, which is, what's your lens on wealth and privilege? This is mine.